A story of a wayward prince who does not want to be king nor wants anything to do with that, but is somehow forced to. I feel like we've seen this story before. And we all know how that turned out. I want to talk about The King for a little bit. This is probably one of the best movies streaming on Netflix in 2022. Now, it came out in 2019. I watched it then, and I watched it again last night. And again, this movie, watching it for a second or third time, you catch some things you didn't catch the first time. But anyway, so basically The King is written by David McCall and starring Timothee Chalamet. And it follows Timothee Chalamet's character, Hal, who is a prince who doesn't want anything to do with his father's kingdom. Now, based on a certain number of events, he's forced to take on that role, and we have the story of King Henry V. Now, without going into spoilers, I want to talk about a few things that I liked about this movie, a few things that I disliked about this movie, and what I would rate this movie overall, and whether or not you guys should watch this movie, or rather, how you should watch this movie. So first, the acting. I think the acting was amazing. I think this is probably the third or fourth movie I've seen actually Timothee Chalamet, and I need to go back and watch the rest of his movies. Anyway, I think he did a great job depicting someone who kind of had a troubled past, but is put into a position of power and kind of has to navigate some of the challenges that comes along with that. I feel like Robert Pattinson did a great job. I feel like it's a great change of pace from him start to beginning from the time he's in this movie. I think probably my favorite character in this movie is Joel Edgerton, and kind of his role being his companion to Timothee Chalamet. Every time this dude was on the screen, I was laughing my ass off. And I think that tied with a really good story, a great plot. Now, keep in mind, this movie starts off kind of slow, and so you really kind of have to pay attention in the beginning, but also I recommend turning on the subtitles because sometimes it's a little difficult to hear what they're saying, but if you stick with it 30, 45 minutes, the story really gets rolling. The action is amazing. So a lot of times in medieval pieces or fantasy pieces with swords and shields and fighting and all that, what you have is these master swordsmen who just, have all these fancy moves with their swords, and while that's cool, it doesn't feel real realistic. In this movie, they kind of start putting different elements like the weight of the armor the characters are wearing, or how tired you get in a sword fight, and then how those matches, even in today's world, you get into a fist fight in a bar or whatever, how often do those fights continue to be fist fights? They end up in some kind of wrestling match, and whoever can wrestle the best typically wins the fight. Anyway, I think this movie does a good job of kind of portraying what real fight scenes are. Another piece when it comes to realism, which I just think is amazing in this movie, is how they portray what a siege actually looks like and how frightening it probably is and how long it probably takes. Or not probably, how long it definitely takes. One of the things that I think doesn't get put in enough movies is to have more themes around companionship or friendship. In this movie, luckily, and I think one of the biggest reasons I like this movie is because romance is kind of put on the back burner. It's not a story about, save the princess or, happily ever after love, whatever. Overall, if you want a movie that has amazing action, a really smooth storyline, and won't put you to sleep, I recommend watching The King, as it's one of the better medieval movies I've seen in the recent few years. Now, if I was gonna rate this movie between 1 and 10, and I'm gonna start using half measures because you just have to, I'd give it like an 8.5. Only because there's a few things I would have done differently, but I'm gonna talk a little bit more in detail in another video when I talk more spoiler talk and things that happened in this movie going forward. So, guys, have you seen this movie? If you did, what did you think about it? Let me know down in the comments. And if so, what's your favorite medieval movie or TV show? Let me know. I'll see you guys in the next one.